Oh yeah! Cream of the crop! Devil Dog Gaming! Step into it!
Hi everybody, it's me, Nate, aka Devil Dog, and I'm back with another game review. This game kind of came out of nowhere. So that's the reason why I really don't have any sort of funny opening or anything for it. This is just going to be a legitimate, straight, normal game review of a game that just came out called Darksiders 3. You know, maybe if they promoted this game a little bit more, people would know that it existed. But it came out of nowhere. Is this game good? Does it live up to the Darksiders name? Am I happy they actually made this game? Or should they have just ended it when I think it was Vigil Games closed and I think they merged into THQ Nordic? Should I just let this game series die? Or is it good that they actually made this game? Stay tuned for my review to find out. Hello everybody, it's me, Nate, aka Devil Dog, and I'm back with another game review. This time I'm reviewing the just released Darksiders 3. It was released on November 22nd of 2018 for the PlayStation 4, the Xbox One, and Microsoft Windows. It was developed by Gunfire Games and published by THQ Nordic, and you sorta can say this is a DMC Soulsiders, is kind of what most people are saying it. Now as for the basic plot, it's an action-adventure game where you play as Fury, one of the 4 members of the Horsemen of the Apocalypse, on a quest to stop the 7 deadly sins once they have taken over the world. It does have a lot of lore and stuff that coincides with the previous games, so if you played them, it will actually give several good nods to you, but at the same time, you don't really have to. Oddly enough, this game came out of nowhere. They didn't really promote it, even though it does seem to have some special editions for it, including a $400 special edition that comes with 4 gigantic-ass statues, each one of the 4 Horsemen of the Apocalypse, which is actually pretty cool. It does have a day 1 patch that takes a little while to download, but other than that, the game itself is, it's kind of hard to really decide to say what this game really is. It is a hack and slash, but it is not nowhere near as good as the previous Darksiders game. In fact, I found this to be, despite what people say, it's went more the way of the Devil May Cry series, or soulish is what I would say. It does seem to have some major issues with the fact of just how this game is. I love the fact that they actually still continued this game series, franchise as a whole, but I don't like the way they went with it. This one focuses heavily more on you strategically fighting enemies, and with the counter button of being able to dive and duck out of the way. And there seems to be a delay with it or something. If you don't press the dive button, the block button, counter button at the right exact time, you will get hit as Fury. It seems to be a pain in the ass, and even though they don't throw a lot of enemies at you like they did in the previous Darksiders games, they still have a lot of people that will cheap shot your ass to where the enemies hit you very hard, you take a lot of damage. There is even enemy scaling, so if you level up your character as you go through this game, and you go back to previous levels, which you will be doing a lot, because it's not really an open level game, you'll find that the enemies level up, they take a lot of hits before you kill them, they can hurt you really easily, and they cheap shot you. There'll be multiple enemies at you, and you'll hold your button, the left trigger button, to lock onto an enemy, but the problem is they'll have a little icon icon flash for a split second to let you know if there's another enemy that's actually throwing something at you, a projectile attack, or trying to attack you. And it's very hard to judge that, and you get hit a lot with a lot of cheap shots. And I've also noticed that when you try to heal with your heal crystals, a lot of times you'll have to let off of the block button, either your lock-on button and the dodge button, in order to press up on the plus pad in order to use your heal item. And a lot of times there's like a delay before she uses the item to where you will get killed. And one of the big problems with this game, I have to actually say, is it has some really sucky checkpoint system in this. I've had so many times when I've got through a pretty long area after doing some puzzles and got to a boss, and naturally you need to learn how to defeat these bosses. Some of the bosses are pretty, decent. But honestly, I found that, you got to learn how to defeat these bosses. But if you die, it's got a long-ass load time, and the checkpoint system is so broken, it puts you back at pretty much damn near the beginning of the whole damn level you have to get through again, including all the puzzles before you get back to the boss. And that is just annoying as hell. Now, I do like the aspect of you fighting and defeating the 7 deadly sins, which are all done up as these different sort of monsters that represent each of the 7 sins, which I actually love the artistic character designs they came up with. Some of them are actually pretty damn neat to fight. She got the friggin' Eye of Thundara in her chest. Thundercats, ho! It's a fucking Skeksis! Oh, and EO, and I get to fight Skeksis from the Dark Crystal.
I'm on a mission.
But the only problem is you can't have a game that centers on the fighting mechanics done up like this, to where they're trying to make it more like Dark Souls in terms of its difficulty, and have a very sucky checkpoint system. Other than that, I mean, the game suffers some stutters or slowdown quite often as you're going through these levels. And these levels are not that big anymore. They're more like, Darksiders 1 than it is Darksiders 2. Darksiders 2 had a big, giant open area. You got to go through a central hub and all these areas to explore. This, you could tell they had a much smaller budget to work with, because it's back to almost like the Darksiders 1 game in terms of it being a lot of corridors and a lot of levels that you go through that are just not that big of rooms, and a lot of backtracking. There's a lot of parts that, it's like Metroidvania light, because you'll come across the areas in the first part of the game that you cannot get through until you have a certain weapon that will allow you to get past, a certain wall, and you won't be able to do that until you come back. And like I said, since the enemies scale with you, coming back through and fighting the enemies again, it's actually kind of a pain in the ass. They do have something that you'll come across, I can't remember his name, but he'll pop up as a demon guy, and you can buy your upgrades through him with the souls that you collect from killing enemies, and also buy items and sell items with him. And he also has something known as serpent holes, which pretty much acts like warps that they'll take you throughout the other areas of the levels that you've already been through. And other than that, it's just from going from point A to point B, killing the enemies, solving some puzzles. Like a good example would be you'll find these little bugs that you have to get them to eat this gore, bloody gore, in order for them to get like a magma butt, to pick them up and throw them into a wall to make them explode, to allow you to progress. It's not really that massively difficult in terms of the puzzles. Point this there, click this there, spin this wheel. But most of it is very, very bland. Honestly, most of the level designs aren't that impressive. I mean, the cityscapes and the caves and stuff like that, some of them look kind of nice, but for the most part, it's very kind of just homogenized, just bland and kind of boring in terms of just the way the structure of this game is. Now, the other thing is, other than the neat enemy designs, the main character Fury you play as, I find her annoying as hell. She's a bitch. I understand she's supposed to be Fury and she ain't nice, but if you play as a character, you got to actually like the character. If you hate the character you play as, it doesn't make it any better when you're playing through when they have really, really bad, cheesy voice acting. And some of the other acting of the voices are actually pretty well done, but honestly, I find this not to be as good as the first two games in terms of their voice acting. Now, like I said, it's mostly a very linear game with levels. It's not an open world. It's a lot like the first game. And your horse, you don't even get your damn horse in it. Your horse gets killed pretty early on. You don't even get to use the horse because I guess they figured, hey, what's the point of having a horse? In the end, because the levels ain't big enough to need the horse. So, but it basically the fighting mechanics consist of what I call bait and dodge fighting mechanics. The dodge seems very off. The lock-on sucks, and you get massive cheap shots all the time. And once you learn the attack patterns of the enemies, it's still not that easy just because you get cheap shotted from them. Now, flames and lightning are used throughout the levels, and it does have no hand-holding. So there's a lot of parts you'll come to a wall, and you'll be like, where the hell am I supposed to go? And you really don't know what to do. You'll figure it out eventually, but it can be kind of annoying. Now, the bosses are another thing. I'm going to say they're mega spongy. They seem to take way too much hits. I mean, once you figure out their patterns and stuff, they're not that difficult to beat. And only a couple of the bosses in this game actually do anything original in terms of how you fight them. Most of them are just like attack a guy, dodge, roll out of the way, attack again, keep attacking, keep attacking, keep attacking, keep attacking. I mean, I swear, the art direction and level design are good. They're not great, but it is generic. And for a 20-hour game, the price of $60 is just way too much. And hands down, I just have to say, the level scaling, the size of them, sucks. This game seems like a PS2, PS3 game. And it's kind of a shame. I find it to be a very mediocre addition to the Darksiders series. I'm glad they made it, but in the end, for $60, it's not worth it. And another thing I just got to talk about is the combo system. What the hell is with this combo system? Oh, well, look at this. If I just want to do a normal attack, it's just a square for a slash. Or square, square. Or square, square, square. Or square, 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 square. Oh, look, for executioner, if I really want to mix up, it's square, 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 square. Wow, what else they got here? Let's see, square. Press and hold square. Press and hold square, square. Square, delay, square. Square, square, square. Square, 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 square. Everything's a fucking square. Square, square, square. Now, other than the combo system, you think, well, what about music? There are some parts with some orchestral music that kicks in that's very well done, but for the most part, you're just only going to be listening to like mostly ambient music. I mean, some parts do have good music, but it's very, very, minimal in terms of music. And, overall, the way this game's set up, I would say it's 90% running down corridors and rooms, 10% environmental puzzles, and then fighting a boss. Now, one good thing I can say about this game is there is no microtransactions in it, and it is a complete single-player adventure. So they did do that, which is pretty good. And as you progress through with Fury, you do get multiple different weapons that you actually get to play as. I do like the fact that Fury gets a whip, weapon that she uses, and you can use it like to swing across gaps and do combos with, which is kind of nice. And as you go along, you'll upgrade and get like a boomerang, a lance, a big ass mallet, some blades, some throwing daggers, and along with upgrading your whip. But other than that, it's nothing really special here. This game, it is fun. I would say I recommend you pick it up and rent it like I did, because I was able to play through and beat the game just by a 2-day rental. And considering that I didn't even know this game was coming out, maybe that's for a reason. Maybe they didn't want people to know they made this game. I don't know. It's a shame. I mean, because I actually do like the Darksiders series, and I did find it to be a playable game. It's definitely playable once you get past the aspects of the certain flaws that they have with just the way the fighting mechanics and the dodge mechanic is. Other than that, the level design is poor, and the enemy character designs are pretty damn cool. But in the end, definitely pass on this. This game should have been like 30, 40 bucks tops. $60 is way too much for this game, for a 20-hour game with these sort of problems in it. But in the end, am I glad that THQ Nordic and Gunfire actually made this game? I am. I just hope for the fourth and final game in the series, if they do make it, they go back to really the roots and actually focus on making a much more entertaining game with a better, more likable character, better level designs, and quit trying to do the flavor of the month. I mean, I swear, not every fighting game has to be like a Dark Souls, Demon Souls, Devil May Cry. You can do your own thing, guys. You can do a little bit of originality in it. And in this one, I just don't think that you really stepped outside the box in the right direction. That's all. But in the end, it's an average game. It's not piss poor, but it certainly ain't great. It's definitely playable and worth a rental. And if you are a huge fan of the Darksiders series, I still recommend that you pass on this until you get it for a cheap price of maybe $20, maybe $30 max. This was Nate, aka Devil Dog, and I want to say thank you for everyone who subscribes to my channel. Please hit that bell icon to stay updated when I release new videos. And remember, in the upcoming year, I will have big new epic contests on the way. And I always end my videos by saying, have fun, play hard, and remember, people, the devil is in the details. Peace out.
Thunder, 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 thunder cats! Yeah, thunder cats!